Captain Peter Kotze, South Korea. This is my briefing room. Part 3 in the final part for the RNP, that is the RNAV RNP approach to runway 08 left at Muscat. If you can remember, at the completion of part 2, we were coming up to ITLAC. So I've just stepped us back a little bit so that we can just review when the final descent stage should take place. We may end up being in a constant descent path, which would be ideal, but we have to set the altitude on the MCP altitude window lower before, at least 2 nautical miles before the first stage descent. I've just done that. If you notice, we have set the altitude window to 400 feet. We're not going to configure the 8 items that we discussed in part 2 until 2.5 nautical miles prior to the final approach fix, which happens to be Mike 07 Whiskey Lima. Here's our position here on the map. And as we mentioned, 3,400 by ITLAC, we will start a descent to 2,200. And if fortunate, we won't level off, we'll just continue through. But 2.5 nautical miles prior to Mike 07 Whiskey Lima, we have to ensure that we've got a lower altitude set in the MCP, which we have already done. We have to ensure RNP AMP is within limits, that we are in VNAV path, which we are now. Gear down, flaps 15, speed brakes armed, set flap 15 speed, then configure for landing flap 30, we're at 30 plus 5. That will be done at 2 miles prior to the final fix, which is Mike 07 Whiskey Lima. And as you can remember from the last video, we had drawn a 2 nautical mile ring around our final descent point. So that is where we will be triggered to complete all items of configuring the aircraft to land. We've already configured the altitude in the window, so that's complete. And that's necessary because we are going to be starting a descent shortly. And we will see that here, and we are in VNAV path. So all of that will happen very shortly, and we'll watch for that. So there's our scale on the nav display, and we have started down FMC speed, verbal call, and there's our good rate of descent leaving 3320 for 2200 or above by our final fix. And if we make good that restriction, it will be a constant descent path. Let's see what happens. Now, we mustn't forget that we've got other items to do as we approach the 2 nautical mile arc prior to Mike 07 Whiskey Lima. Now, because I am by myself in the simulator, I'm going to start configuring now. So I've configured all the items required. I've set VREF to VREF plus 5, and we can't complete the landing check yet until we set the missed approach altitude. But if you notice, here we are, and our nav performance scale glide path is here. And we're just about at that point now. And that's what we wanted to happen, because if you notice on the nav display, that is the top of descent for a 3.1 nautical mile, I should say 3.1 glide slope, as we looked at in video number 2. So everything is working according to Hoyle, we say. So we'll go back and go dynamic. Radio altimeter was alive while I was chatting, and that would have been a verbal call, and we would have checked the barometric altimeter reading, the radio altimeter reading, and temperature that we've talked about. There were no temperature requirements, no temperature correction requirements. Also, we had the correct altimeter setting. And I made a very strong point of that in one of my video 1 or video 2. So that is your last chance to ensure that you have done your job. You don't just check the barometric altitude, you check all the things that I have been talking about in my videos for the last 4 years. Is you're the pilot, airmanship dictates that the final fix is your final chance to make sure everything is in order. All right, so we are in VNAV path. We are in VNAV path. We are LNAV engaged. Remember, those are the 2 prerequisites for an RNP approach. And we have accomplished that. LNAV in white is the go around, or the missed approach is armed for a missed approach. So that's in order also. So what we're looking at as we come up on the final fix is the R feet. So these are vertical limits set, and we're within the vertical limits set, and we don't change them unless our company SOPs have dictated that, and they have received approval to do that. So generally, if your company is doing its job, leave that alone. Don't touch it. And we're right on our path. And it looks like our dream will come true. As we intercept the NAV performance scale, we'll be just going by the final fix, and it will be a constant descent angle path, which is ideal. Let's just see how close we are to that. I'll cut her loose, and we're on the move. We're dynamic. We're just going by now, and the altimeter, barometric altimeter, radio altimeter, everything checks the way it should. And we are right on path. I've frozen the simulator. We've set the missed approach altitude at 6,000 feet. And we've completed the landing check, and that's also part of the missed approach being set properly. So all checks are complete, and let's just go and have a look outside. I've cleared the weather up so that we can have a quick look at our position with respect to the runway. Let's do that. So there we are, 2 red, 2 white. We're right on the poppy. Now remember, we're flying a 3.1 glide slope. So our path and the poppy aren't the same, but they're super close. And that would have been part of the briefing, especially if the glide path was quite a bit less than the poppy. So that is called airmanship. So we are dynamic again, and everything is completed. And remember, we still have a strong wind from the left. And we'll have another look at 1,000 feet. The altimeter setting was correct. We talked about that before. The minimum is correct. And the radio altimeter is looking good with respect to the barrel, with all the things we talked about. And remember, just a quick review, we know we have the right approach set. We checked that before. And we are an LNAV VNAV, which we are. And the nav performance scale localizer or center line is here and here, those two little white diamonds. We're coming close to our minimums. We follow the company SOPs for the correct calls to be made. I'll try to freeze it right on minimums. All right, there we are frozen. And let's have a look outside. Well, there we are, to red, to white. Welcome to the future of flight training. This is a flight training prep, but you can count it as flight training before your own training in a simulator. So thank you for watching. That's the end of the 3 parts to the RNAV RNP approach. Remember, if you want to pay for view only of my total library for a lifetime, you can contact me. Have a look at my website. I've got it on screen right now above in this video, and contact me via email, and it's also on screen at the present time. Enjoy your flying and stay professional. Thank you.